So, Great Campaigns of the American Civil War. This is Stonewall Jackson's Way 2 by Multi-Man Publishing, although this game has a long history. It was originally published by Avalon Hill as Stonewall Jackson's Way 1 25 years ago or so, back in 1992. It's been republished obviously under some sort of licensing agreement there, because we've got the Hasbro logo as well as MMP. But MMP are keeping this series alive, and I've been playing around with this. I played a few scenarios of this before Christmas, and now I've got a campaign game set up, and I'm panning across a beautiful map here which probably won't show up very well, and there's very few counters on it at the moment. Yeah, so the original Stonewall Jackson's Way just covered the campaign of 2nd Manassas. When they republished it as Stonewall Jackson's Way 2, they included 1st Manassas, 1st Bull Run, whatever you want to call it, and that's what I've got set up here. The maps are amazing, just amazing, but you know, they're renowned for it. These maps by Charlie Kibler, just fantastic. They're sort of beautiful, detailed, evocative, just over a mile to a hex maps. Yeah, just look absolutely great. So yeah, I've got the 1st Bull Run campaign. This is scenario 6 set up and just about to start. Bull Run itself is this. That's crap, my tweezers. Bull Run itself is this running down here, and historically, there's Bull Run Bridge right in the centre of the picture there, Union Mills. And if you play the one-day scenario, there's a stone bridge up here, and you've got Centerville under there, currently occupied by some dug-in Confederate troops. Who's in there? Let's have a look who's in Centerville right now. It is Koch, with about 3,000 men by the looks of things. Yeah, there we go. 6 strength points. Okay. Yeah, if you play the one-day scenario, just the Battle of Bull Run, you've essentially got a very well dug-in Confederate force running from roughly here, Bull Run Bridge, up this river line here to the Stone Bridge, and then Jackson with some reserves just in this area around here, with Manassas Junction, I think, in there. And that's what your situation looks like. And then the Union troops are based sort of staging around Centerville, and actually try and swing round this way and outflank down towards this area here, Groveton and Newmarket. And most of the action happens up in this area, I think, because frontally assaulting across the creek with dug-in Confederate positions is suicide. So they swing round here and try and get some action going up in this direction. Played that a couple of times. Feds won them, Confederates won them both, but it was good fun. And then what's really cool about the system is that one of the scenarios winds history back a couple of days, and you've still got McDowell based around Centerville, with everything sort of staged and set up and ready to go. He's ready to rock and roll, but the Confederates are in a right pickle. They've got, you know, some forces trying to desperately dig in along the creek, others sort of back down in this area, just trying to get there. They're not, you know, they haven't formed up their army as such. And then you've got the Army of the Shenandoah way over here, trying to march in from here and get to a railroad to get shipped in along these red railroad lines somewhere useful. And that's a 3-day scenario, and that's you know, really interesting to see, you know, the opportunities that could have been taken had the Union not sat in Centerville for 2 days scouting, trying to work out where the Confederates were. By the time they worked out where they were dug in front of them. But, you know, so that's really cool. So now we've got rewinding, you know, 10 more days to the situation we have here, where we've got scattered, essentially, Confederate forces and pretty much 4 Union divisions. Each of those force markers is representing what's on their force chart up over here. So you've got a division under Tyler, you've got the overall commander McDowell, and division under Hunter, division under Miles, and one under Heintzelman, and a little bit of cavalry. So they are going to come on map. They get the first turn automatically. They're going to come on map. They're going to have to spend a sort of certain mandated number of movement points to get on map, and then we'll be off and running. This system, 25 years old as it is, like I say, I've really enjoyed the shorter scenarios that I've played. It has a number of, not unique, but you know, distinguishing features. It has a pulsed turn sequence, so essentially what you do is you roll a 2 d6 for each side, and the winner, I think the ties break the ties go in Confederate favour, but the winner gets to make an activation, and an activation might consist of, say, activating Evans here and deciding to do something with Evans, and then we would roll some movement points for Evans. They're called movement points, but in my view they're much more like command points, because you need them to attack as well. You need movement points to attack, so they're kind of more, you know, more command points, because the more of those points you put into an attack, then the better your attack is. In other words, you can spend no movement points for an attack, and it can be very hasty and you get lots of negative modifiers, or you can have a very well prepared attack and get bonuses, or things in between. Anyway, you roll for these points, and then he'd move somewhere. You know, he might march down here if he's got enough points to make it along this road. Let's say he ended up with 3 points, so he could come dump down this road into Saunders Tollgate on here, and then you would add some fatigue to him. You've got, if I just go up in there, you can see these sort of fatigue markers. So you've got 1s, 2s, 3s and 4s, and when something hits 4 fatigue, it can no longer act in the turn, and it has to wait till the next turn and recover some of its fatigue before it can act again. And that has other implications, because stuff that has 3 or 4 fatigue becomes exhausted the following day, and that has negative consequences. So trying to keep your troops fresh and get what you need done is the sort of tension and balancing act in this game. And the more command points you're rolling, obviously the more efficiently you're commanding your army. Essentially, over time, gradually, you will get efficiencies. And the Confederates get a slight bonus. They get like +1s on their die rolls for these points, generally speaking. So once he'd done that, you would then roll another 2d6 to see who had the initiative, and someone else would activate, and it's this accumulation of fatigue that eventually prevents you from doing things. But you can win lots of successive initiative rolls and get all the opportunities to act, or pass and let the opponent, you can choose to react to your opponent if you like. The other thing you can do is activate a leader. So for example, you could activate a higher leader, such as, let's take this, we could activate Tyler here. Let's just illustrate this with a leader activation marker. So we could activate Tyler, and he could activate all of his units, and he would roll collectively for how many movement points they were going to get. So let's come over here. Let's say he rolled a 4, so we'd put 4 there, and that would then give all of his units under his command, Sherman, Richardson, Schenker and Keyes there, they would all have 4, and they would all do their activating, moving, marching, attacking stuff and then we'd move on to the next leader and accumulate fatigue, and then we'd move on to the next leader. If I remember rightly, fighting generally is just part of this sort of pulsed system. These units are generally, I think, brigade size. If we come down and try and find one, there we go, D.R. Jones Brigade, early brigade. I think cavalry tend to be regiments, but the infantry tends to be brigades, and then you have divisional leaders, and in this game we have district leaders, so people like McDowell and Johnson, I think, Beauregard don't really count as army leaders in this game. They're district leaders, but they have much the same function. So in this game I need to check the victory conditions, but I think it's fairly straightforward. The bulk of the points in this game are going to be allocated to either side for control of Fairfax County, which you can see here, Fairfax, and it's got a dotted red line as a border, and you have to control Fairfax Courthouse to control Fairfax County, and you can see that there's some Confederate forces controlling it at the moment, and also control of Prince William County, and specifically Manassas Junction. So the Union forces want Manassas Junction, although they can also get large numbers of points if they can take Bristow Station instead and be threatening Manassas Junction. So if they can take this, get into this area here, then they're doing very well, likely doing very well on the victory point table. And the other place that they'd really like to take is Warrenton down over here, which again is on a major sort of intersection of railroads and roads and stuff. And so those are the sort of key elements for them of winning the campaign, is getting across from there and battling through to get over here. The Confederates obviously want to stop them, but they've got their forces rather dispersed at the moment, brigades up in Leesburg, and then dotted forces here, some concentration of force around Manassas. It looks more than it is, though. They've got a brigade, Early's brigade here with a couple of thousand men, D.R. Jones with a couple of thousand more, and then a force here which looks impressive, but it's not. That force is Beauregard, a camp, a depot, and then they've got Longstreet and some heavy artillery. Longstreet, a couple of thousand men, some heavy artillery. So they are very dispersed at the moment. They need to get their act together and get a defence set up somewhere, and the Union, the onus is on them to try and exploit this kind of disorganisation at the moment. The other thing, obviously, that we're going to get is a lot of Confederate reinforcements, which are going to be coming over from this sort of Clark County area. I think they turn up on the board somewhere up around here, and they're obviously trying to get all the way across the map. There are rules for rail movements, so they will try and come down to these railroad stations to embark and get along the railroads down here. And that force will be Johnson's sort of Shenandoah army there. 13 turns I think this lasts, and I'm looking forward to it. It's taken me a while to get round to. I set it up once and took it down again. I've set it up again. That was basically because Christmas happened and work and going out and seeing people and family and stuff, and by the time I got back to the board I looked at it and was like, what's this? What does it all mean? I'd forgotten what I was doing. So I've remembered what I'm doing. I've got it all set up and ready to go. So this campaign game of All Green Alike, the Bull Run campaign, is underway with the Union Army of the Potomac moving onto the board. Tyler's got quite a good movement role and was able to push forward quite a lot
these two divisions. I think that was Miles. A random event saw him replaced by Richardson, and Richardson was replaced in here by McConnell, but they only just about made it onto the map, as did who's the other one, Hunter, and Henselman down here pushed forward a little bit more. The Confederates aren't active in turn 1 unless something comes within 3 hexes to activate them. So the Union cavalry skirted round Fairfax Court, and I'm probably going to make a roll for Palmer here to drop in to this area and maybe try and drop onto the road down Ox Hill, somewhere around there. That would activate him though, coming down to Ox Hill, so not quite sure. I'd like to get something in behind it, just in behind this force, just to make it a little bit more awkward for them to disengage, which they're almost undoubtedly going to do given the weight of troops coming towards them. The Confederates have an interesting, situation here, sort of fighting withdrawal to do with their forces so dispersed. They've got to try and concentrate, they've got to try and delay, and they've got to try and establish some sort of defensive position. Really uncertain how this is all going to play out, and it's quite a fresh, interesting situation to be playing. Down here, Henselman's going to try and do something interesting, I think. I like the idea of trying to drop him down onto this river and then maybe follow the river line up and try and come at Manassas Junction from a different direction. If we could be coming across this Cedar Creek down here, Cedar Run, that might prevent the blockade in here. Of course, he may just get stranded over here in Fairfax County with terrible movement rolls and not make any headway at all. So, it's just one of the ways this system can tell a story. So that's what they're going to try and do. Like I say, no Confederate moves, so the Union are just picking units to activate and rolling to move them. So let's do a little bit of that. Let's see what we can do with Palmer here. Now Palmer is, if I grab my tweezers, camera shake, blah. So if I grab my tweezers, I think Palmer's made 2 moves because he only got 5 movement points and it cost him that to get on the board. So he's on 2 fatigue to get there. So if we activate him, he will go to 3 fatigue, and going to 3 fatigue means that he has to make a roll to see whether that has any effect on him. He should also have a strength marker, and cavalry in this game is automatically disorganised, so he's disorganised at 2 fatigue. So let's take that 2 fatigue off and throw down a 3. So he's now 3 fatigue. So we'll roll him some movement points, but then we'll have to roll him an extended march roll. So his movement points is 2 dice. He's going to have 7. Nice average roll. So I'll just mark that up on this chart. But now he also has to make an extended march roll. He gets a 3. He should be fine. And being in an 1861 scenario is +1, that's 4, but he's cavalry, so that's -3, that puts him on 1. It's a Union unit, so that's +1, but it doesn't apply to Union cavalry. And he's going from fatigue 2 to 3. And he's not exhausted, so yeah, he's what did all that come out as? 3, 0, 1. I think it came out as a 1. And on this table here, he's got disorganised manpower less than 5, no effect. Die roll less than or equal to 5, no effect. So he takes no ill effects from that, and now he's got 7 movement points to spend. I think he's probably going to follow this road there for 1, 2. I'm going to have to check whether this crossing this sort of creek thing costs anything. I don't think it does. Creek, no effect. Yeah. So 7 to spend, and he's got to come down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if he drops in here, he'll activate all the Confederates in Fairfax Courthouse, which he really doesn't want to do. So I think he's going to just slip in here. Or he could push forward a little bit more and try and prevent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but that would activate Evans up here. He could sit on the Ox Road here without activating anything, but is that a better position for him to be in than here? No, it's not. So that's what he's going to do, and then I'm going to carry on, moving Union units forward and adding fatigue to them, which is all really rather awkward on camera, so I'd rather not do lots of it, but there we go. This is the position we've reached at the end of the first turn then here in All Green Alike, the Bull Run campaign from Stonewall Jackson's Way 2. What have I got to show you? Just up here, Tyler made an approach to Fairfax Courthouse, pushed right up, was threatening all the Confederates, and was actually threatening Keyes to sort of perhaps drop in behind and surround whatever was in there. That actually activated, that move here activated everything that was in that area, which was Bonham with about 3,500 Confederate troops and Radford and Mumford's cavalry regiments. It also activated Ewell, who was located here in Fairfax Station, and as you can see, Ewell decided that discretion was the better part and all that, went legging it off down the road back towards a more defensible position. And likewise you can see Bonham there, who got a very poor roll to get out of Fairfax Courthouse, but the Confederates won the initiative a couple of times in a row, and he was able to pull back here out of the zones of control and then down here, and then he got a very high roll that allowed him to make it back into safely behind the river. And the Confederates kind of wanted him there because he can that's quite a key location with fords in multiple directions to cross the creek, so the Bull Run. So he's probably going to dig in there and start building the defence that the Confederates need. As you can see down here, Henselman made very poor progress as he tried to advance. All these units became disorganised from the marching, and so he didn't want to push them too hard, because once you're disorganised and you keep pushing, then it's very easy to start losing manpower, and they don't want to fritter away manpower just on marching if they can help it. So this is where they got to. There are all kinds of, there are some neat things in this game that I haven't really touched upon yet. Victory points can be won and lost by taking manpower losses, so we track sort of casualties and so on using this track here. This campaign game also has panic levels for each of the armies. You have a panic level for the Army of the Shenandoah and the Potomac Army for the Confederates, and the Potomac Army for the Union, and all kinds of things can create panic, retreats and routes and so on, and you accumulate panic points, and if you get too many, your army panics, and then you suffer kind of additional setbacks from that kind of from that loss of loss of command control and so on, loss of confidence, which they're not sort of great battles of history, sort of catastrophic where everyone runs for the hills, but they give you minuses for a couple of turns, and they also allow you to make retreat moves though in the face of enemy hostilities, so you can leg it away from the enemy. But Whether that's a good thing or not is another matter. So anyway, that's for another day. This is the position at the end of turn 1. All the recoveries happen, so units that have accumulated a certain amount of fatigue at the end of the day, they will become exhausted, and that carries further penalties. So it's almost like you can push hard in one day, but then you need a day of minimal activity to get yourself back out of exhausted, unless you're just going to try and really, mash forward as fast as possible and not care about the consequences. But with 13 days to play, I don't think the Confederates, the Union, really want to fritter away their manpower just yet on that kind of thing. The other thing is that there are campaign rules. This Union army is currently quite large. A lot of the brigades have sort of 3,000 men in each one. There are 5-6 strength points in each one. They've got a lot more force on the table than the Confederates, but their troops, a lot of them are only signed up for 3 months, and a lot of them are due to go home at about now, and so there's a table where they have to start taking troop strength points off in a couple of days' time. Which is another good reason for the Confederates to pull back. If they launched forward to try and stop this army, they're facing it at its maximum strength. But if they can fight it in a week's time, it will have lost 5,000 or 6,000 men. So there's another good reason not to be doing anything silly at the moment, and just trying to get a good position, get everyone centralised. End of day 2, turn 2 here at the campaign for Bull Run in Great Campaigns of the American Civil War. I keep wanting to call it Great Battles of the American Civil War, totally different system. Great Campaigns of the American Civil War, Stonewall Jackson's Way 2. Here we are, Bull Run. Tyler, with his division, has made fantastic progress with this. I don't know what that 1v2 means. The V is... who knows. Anyway, his division has charged forward pretty much along the main road here, and he has just had incredible rolls. 2 5s in the first turn, and then a 5 and a 6 this turn, and these troops aren't even exhausted. They're not even flipped, and they were threatening to surround the Confederate brigade that was sat in Centreville, and that had to pull back behind the river, and that cost him, I think it took him 3 moves to get out of there. No, maybe only 2, because he's not exhausted. So yeah, a very, very quick advance by Tyler, and you can see the rest of the Union forces are significantly behind this lightning quick advance. But he's sort of simultaneously threatening to push on into this area and try and swing around into this Groveton area, where historically the Union aimed their sort of outflank down through Sudley Church and Groveton around here. But he's also in danger of getting sort of separated from the rest of the cut adrift from the rest of the Union forces. Although whether that is a danger, it's not like the Confederates, have any great forces, to counterattack or anything. So perhaps he just pushes on, tries to force down into this area, and so I think that's his plan, is to try and have sort of taken this Sudley Springs area and got a decent position here by the end of the 3rd day, and that would start making life very, very difficult for the Confederates, who want to naturally defend this river line. Like I say, slow progress for the rest of these divisions, which mainly because they had one or more brigades get disorganised in day 1, and therefore exhausted and disorganised. You don't want to push too hard because you start losing manpower. And the Confederates have just fallen back as they needed to escape, any unpleasantness, they had to pull back out of Fairfax Courthouse not to get surrounded there, and then back out of Centreville because, a brigade in here, some cavalry drops down onto this road, or this guy drops down onto this road in here, or comes round, and suddenly it's very, very tricky to get out, and any sort of retreat results forcing you back, costing you casualties through zones of control, and it all gets very sticky. They don't want that happening. They can't afford the casualties. They can't afford to lose the manpower. They can't afford the victory points. The only casualty so far has been one of the Confederate cavalry regiments who's left. Mumford's left, so Radford, retreating in the face of one of these infantry moves, failed his sort of the retreat die roll and lost a manpower, and since they've only got a manpower, that was them gone. And cavalry retreats do count towards victory point losses in this game. So the Union have their first victory point, and they're about to have more for having solid control of Fairfax County once they've got some troops garrisoned in the courthouse here. And we're pushing into turn 3, and this is where the Confederates' Shenandoah forces are going to start arriving. So up over here, that big stack there, with Johnson and Jackson and B and I can't remember the names of all the brigades in there, but LB and who knows what's in there. Johnson. Anyway, B. LZ, Jackson, Smith, and Jeb Stewart. I think that's Jeb Stewart. I can't imagine there's another cavalry commander kicking around called Stewart. So yeah, that lot's going to pile in, but they're going to be way, way, way out of it, all the way up over here. They're going to have a lot of marching to do just to try and get onto a railroad line. And then they're going to have to try and organise railing in, which is not a simple process in this. You have to make rolls to embark, and it costs you fatigue, and if you fail it, you still take the fatigue, and you can only embark if you've got less than X fatigue, so I think it's 2 or less, and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it's not a simple process to get that army down onto a railroad line and railed across here. So the time is against the Confederates with this really quick advance that the Union has currently made. Well, sometimes you get the feeling that you're just doing something really badly wrong. I'm not sure I am, but the position's just looking horrible for the Confederates right now. We are most of the way through turn 3, although Tyler could still kick in some activations if he really wanted to, and it's his speedy advance that caused a lot of the problems, but he's camped in around here. He's got activations still to take, although I haven't rolled the dice yet, but he's got Schenker split off over there, but he's still got 3 brigades in here that can slide up round here unopposed, round onto the flank where there is close to nothing, a disorganised brigade with 1,000 guys sitting there and empty space behind. Well, not quite empty space, there's some sort of 500 guys of really nothing there. And then you've got, Longstreet there, and someone trying to dig in there, and someone trying to dig in there, and a big threat with well over a division down here. And so Beauregard and Early have had to come down here and try and shore up all these fords and river lines, and they've got 2 brigades facing off against 4 brigades down here. So they're outnumbered here, and the Union have forced their way across the river at this ford here, got into here, can now start pushing up into here, compromising these guys and looking to force their way towards Manassas over here. Really, really ugly. And And the reinforcements, the cavalry is not on its way, it's all the way over there. It's not going to arrive in time to shore up this position, or at least, certainly not this position down here. I can't see how that's going to happen. And, the Union have got a few brigades back there just to act as garrison troops and stuff, just to bring forward. And they've still got Hunter in here to push forward and, put some pressure in here just to make sure that nothing happens in this sort of area between Sangster Station and Centreville up there. So they can just occupy this area if they need to, just, strengthen, just to create a sort of continuous army frontage. And, and the Confederates just haven't got the manpower to block all the holes, all the leaks. There's just too many fords, too many ways across this river, too many opportunities to outflank it or to move round it, and too many Union troops. And they cannot give up Manassas without it being the game. It's Manassas Junction is just worth all the victory points in the world. The only way they can give it up is if they can cause huge numbers of casualties without taking any, and when they're outnumbered and going to be taken apart piecemeal, that isn't happening in these circumstances. So they are in a right pickle. They're in a real difficult situation, and I don't know whether it's because the Union have had such good movement die rolls and been so organised that they've just swept past the defences in Fairfax and so on, in Fairfax Station, or whether those guys should have just picketed and stuck it out in their fortifications and tried to dig in and cause delays. But they were just going to get surrounded, and then they were just going to be casualties that were going to rack up Union victory points on the casualty table. So I don't know whether that they would have been 10 losses that the Confederates couldn't afford. So there it is. We're in a very very tenuous position for the Feds right now, and the turn isn't over. But I just thought I'd do a bit of a roundup at this stage. It's just looking so precarious. It's unbelievable. The game itself is hugely enjoyable. It's just, loving the game. Not sure what I'm supposed to do with this Confederate force right now. Really confused.